Welcome to the Suzuka circuit in Suzuka, Japan, and the next to last round of the Formula One World Championship. You're watching Eddie Irvine of Ireland leading Jacques Villeneuve, who started from pole for this race.
Villeneuve's actually holding them up. If you saw Eddie's pass, which no doubt we will see momentarily, you'll see just how he went by and streaked away.
I'm Bob Barsha, along with Derek Bell and Jonathan Green. Glad to have you with us. Here's an onboard view of Eddie Irvine's pass on Jacques Villeneuve to take the lead. Approaching the chicane at the top of the start-finish straight.
Down the outside, the most unusual way to go. Look at him pull out. Down the outside, Jacques must have a very full load of fuel. Eddie must have a very light load of fuel. Round the outside, that is a tremendous move. Of course, it also gives him, look at those brakes glowing, it also gives him the line to turn into the chicane and make benefit of it. But boy, has he streaked away. Jacques actually holding them up quite considerably now.
Here is our situation. Jacques Villeneuve leads Michael Schumacher for the World Driving Championship by 9 points. And look at the gap Eddie Irvine has opened up. Villeneuve took pole for this race, nearly 3 seconds under the old lap record. But he was adjudged to have ignored a yellow flag in the morning session on Saturday morning. After qualifying on Saturday afternoon, several drivers were brought before the stewards, including Villeneuve. They were given various penalties, the most egregious of which was that meted out to Jacques Villeneuve. He was already under probation for ignoring yellow flags on 2 previous occasions this year, on probation to the end of this year and through the first 4 races of next year, and they excluded him from this race, but the team has chosen to appeal. Villeneuve is in the race, hoping to win that appeal, hoping to keep his chances of clinching the World Driving Championship alive. Right now he finds himself a very poor second to Eddie Irvine, who is simply rocketing away on the Ferrari.
5.3 seconds in 2 laps Eddie's pulled out over Villeneuve. That's amazing, but it makes you, as you say, wonder whether Jacques is running a full load, and even Michael Schumacher might well be running a full load of fuel, but it would be unlikely. But it would make a bit of sense, team manager-wise, to make Eddie a lightweight car, get him out in front, make him stir up the opposition a bit. Look at that lead he's got, the whole of the straightaway there. Michael still behind Jacques, and with Hakkinen right behind there. Michael not doing much about Villeneuve just yet. I don't know why. Villeneuve steadying up a bit. He must have had a bit of a problem up the hill, though, letting Irvine through when he did. Or should I say, when holding Schumacher up and everybody, which allowed Irvine to go by Schumacher.
The running order is Irvine, Villeneuve, Michael Schumacher.
Another 3 seconds in a lap. He's streaking away. Well, of course, he was lapping in 140 and Villeneuve in 143. That's why. 3 seconds a lap it is.
Mika Hakkinen runs 4th, and Heinz-Harald Frentzen, Jean Alesi, Gerhard Berger, Johnny Herbert, David Coulthard, and Giancarlo Fisichella. Jan Magnussen has spun off and departed the race in the Stewart Ford.
Yeah, Jan Magnussen has just been signed up by Stewart for a further year, so Jan should have been well relaxed when he went into this race, but not relaxed that he should have gone off the road, that's admitted. Look at that difference in time. It's almost 3 seconds between Irvine and Schumacher's quickest time.
Well, obviously this Ferrari is set up for early speed, light fuel load. Irvine knows this racetrack very well from having raced here in Japanese Formula 3000. Ride with Mika Hakkinen, Michael Schumacher up ahead, and points leader Jacques Villeneuve ahead of Schumacher.
Well, of course, Schumacher's not going to take the risk. Let's just ride with Mika.
Through the spoon curve and up the fastest part of the racetrack toward the top of the hill.
Well, you saw there that Mika was closing in on Schumacher, and Villeneuve pulled away a bit in the very fast corner. The spoon curve as they go there through 130R, under braking coming up into the chicane now. They all close up under braking as they go through there. Of course, Schumacher does not want to get involved in any shambles there with Jacques in front of him or with even Hakkinen behind. Michael needs points in this race, maximum points he can get, because obviously there is this appeal deal going on in Paris this coming week over Jacques' incident yesterday. So of course Michael does not want to get tangled and lose any points. So he's going to have to play it very whiter than white and rely on maybe a superior pit stop to allow him to get ahead, who knows.
These are the S's. They open out as you climb the hill, allowing the drivers to go faster and faster. seconds and change over second place Villeneuve.
Well, in another 6 laps, he'll have enough time to go in and refuel and put tires on and come out still in the lead. Lovely thing to think about, but makes you wonder.
Now let's get back to Villeneuve's appeal. Historically, appeals lead to even worse penalties than those that raised the appeal in the first place. Consider this man, Eddie Irvine, in 1994, a big crash with Jos Verstappen and several others as he lights up those tires under braking for the chicane. He was given a 1-race ban. He appealed it and was given a 3-race ban. Thank you very much. Later that same year, 1994, Michael Schumacher disqualified after the British Grand Prix for passing the pole sitter on the warm-up lap. He finally came in under a black flag. Oops, we have someone else on.
That's coming up. Where is that? Coming after the 130R. That's after the very, very fast corner. Coming up into the chicane, isn't it? Whoever went in there. One of the leading group, that's for sure. Always.
That's the other Stewart. It's Rubens Barrichello.
Dear, oh dear, oh dear.
So both of Jackie Stewart's cars are out of the race, and Barrichello's crossing the racetrack.
He may well get into trouble for that. He got penalised before for that, but I guess he couldn't. He lost it coming out of 130R. He was in actually a very good position in the race. He lost it coming out over the curve. It looks by the dust on the left-hand side of your picture. Then, of course, the blue tire smoke. There he is. His right-hand wheel is dislocated. Looks like his wheel had come off in the course of the incident. I can't believe it came off in the corner, because I think if it had, he'd have turned sharp right instead of sharp left. Jackie looking most despondent. Not a good thing at all for Stewart Racing. Great pity. They've had it 2 spins. What did he say? Well, it certainly wasn't a nice spin. Very, very sad for Stewart. They've had such a sort of mixed season, but I think a very good one for their first year.
Getting back to my story about penalties being made even worse under appeals. Michael Schumacher appealed a penalty back in 1994. He was suspended from 2 races rather than 1. Actually 3 races when you take into account the fact that he was excluded from the results of the British Grand Prix and then banned for 2 races after that. So the Williams team is definitely walking a high wire by appealing the exclusion of Jacques Villeneuve from this race. That's their choice. We'll be back live to Japan in a moment. Back to the Japanese Grand Prix. Let's take another look at the start of this race. Pole sitter Jacques Villeneuve on the right, Michael Schumacher in the red Ferrari on the left.
Look at that move. He went Villeneuve straight across him. Michael Schumacher heaves him across towards the grass. Hakkinen has a great start. Irvine doesn't have such a good start, but I think he was held up a little bit, because I expect Michael had to back off of him when Jack switched across in front of him. This is how they were nose to tail.
Back to live action, and what a disappointment. Ukio Katayama, one of 2 Japanese drivers in this race, is now out. His Minardi has given up the ghost. Michael Schumacher, as you just saw, has set fast lap. Watching Eddie Irvine, who is simply rocketed away from this field in his Ferrari.
Well, the others are starting to pick up time now. We saw Jacques got the fastest lap just now of a 140 something, and now it's Michael who's got it as well. They're all running in very close convoy here. Great group of them, very close indeed. Irvine 40.6 and 40.4 for Michael. So Michael's quickest lap is 2/10 quicker than Irvine's. No doubt Jacques Villeneuve is only too well aware of Michael's intentions right behind him. That's just where Jacques wants him as far as the points are concerned, and hopes he gets sorted out in Paris, which we very much doubt.
Michael Schumacher desperately has to get in front of Jacques Villeneuve. Ironically, they are the only 2 men with a shot at the World Drivers' Championship this year. They have not shared a podium in the 15 races run thus far this season.
They haven't had a close run race yet. This is the closest they've been. They had a bit of a close run at Spa in the Belgian Grand Prix, but they haven't had anything like they're having today, and today is a fairly close run, I would say.
10 laps complete of 53 schedule. Villeneuve has closed up a second or so on Eddie Irvine. The 2 Benettons, there's Johnny Herbert in the Sauber, David Coulthard.
Look how badly. I see Damon Hill's ahead of Pani there, which is good for Damon, because he was pretty lousy there in qualifying. But the Bridgestone cars just haven't featured this weekend, and it's a circuit that Bridgestone, of course, being a Japanese company, it's a circuit where they do a massive amount of testing, all their Formula 3000 races, all their Japanese touring car races and Formula 3. You'd expect them to actually have a lot of knowledge about this circuit and tyre compounds, but it certainly hasn't come together this year, and I think they've been caught out a little bit maybe by the cooler weather.
Bridgestone did not test at this track at all this year. And according to Hiroshi Yakazawa of Bridgestone, who spoke to the press this weekend. Of course, Goodyear, being the sole tire supplier in Formula One for many years, has excellent background on this racetrack. There's Michael Schumacher.
All Jacques can see is that red Ferrari behind him. But of course, unfortunately, this is probably how it will stay for a while until, of course, we get the pit stops. That's assuming that Jacques is on the same schedule as the others. We'll just have to wait and see. But it was strange how slow Jacques was at the beginning, which led you to believe he was settling down to get used to handling with a full car, a full load of fuel, which they don't get much chance to test during practice before the race or during qualifying.
Eddie Irvine has now set fast lap.
Eddie is having a great time in front. It's the first time he's led a Grand Prix. I think I'd be right in saying I can't remember when if he ever led before. Great for Eddie Irvine. After all the critics have been on to him the last week, 2 weeks since the last Grand Prix in Luxembourg, where he said the Ferrari was like a brick down the straight. Didn't endear himself to the Italian press or to the Ferrari management. Of course, there's a lot of discussion as to whether maybe Gerhard Berger, who just had to have dinner with Luca Montezemolo, the president of Ferrari, following that incident, there's talk of maybe that Berger would be going to Ferrari to replace Irvine. But Eddie, I would think, is driving a lot better out there in front than dear old Gerhard Berger would. Eddie is totally incensed. This is, of course, Japan, is where Eddie lived for 2 or 3 years when he disappeared off the European scene, got picked up by Jordan and came back into Formula One.
And then he had the impertinence to suggest that he didn't really care if he got into Formula One because he was making so much money driving Japanese Formula 3000. He was having a great time living in Japan, making his way as a professional racing driver.
Well, he would if you happened to go along to Jordan after Japanese. Jordan never pays anything much anyway, they say.
64th start. Eddie had a very interesting debut at this racetrack back in 1993 with the Jordan team. Happened to get in the way of the late, great Ayrton Senna, who was trying to put him a lap down. Afterwards, Senna was so incensed, he went by and punched Eddie Irvine.
Things we do when we're hot under the collar.
Beautiful day for racing at Suzuka.
That's interesting. That front wing isn't shaking about as much as it did yesterday. We watched it yesterday on the front of the Ferrari, and it's not shaking nearly as much or vibrating as much as they were, so I guess they must have secured it.
Well, Eddie Irvine said his job coming into this race was to get ahead of Jacques Villeneuve and let Michael by when Schumacher approached. You ride with Michael, Villeneuve ahead. Very little question, you're riding with the greatest racing driver in the world today.
Having a mighty difficult time up that hill. He was having to balance it on the throttles with those corners. It gets very slippery up there, and of course, as the tyres start to slip away, then of course it slides even more going up the hill, and Michael was really backing away with it there as only he can. And of course, Villeneuve is equally up to the task as well, but we just haven't ridden with him just yet, so I'd love to see what sort of job he's doing.
Let's call somebody's number we haven't talked about much this year. Tarso Marquez in the Minardi. You saw him a moment ago. He started 20th. He is now running 14th. A good run for the young Brazilian. We'll be back. Working lap 14 of 53 at the Formula One Grand Prix of Japan. Eddie Irvine has rocketed into the race lead and has more than 10 seconds on the second place man, Formula One points leader Jacques Villeneuve. While we were away, a couple of important pit stops. Mika Hakkinen and Gerhard Berger stopped from positions 5 and 6 on the racetrack.
Magic to see Eddie really giving it such stick after all the criticism he's had, and probably me being one of them as well. That is Alesi coming in now for a pit stop.
From the 6th spot, this is with 14 laps complete.
Look at his wheels all locked up as he came in. Look at the blisters on that tyre that came off. Did you see that? At least it looked like some lap blister to me. That didn't look good. They're blistering quicker than they thought. Maybe the ambient temperature's up a bit on what it has been, although it wasn't supposed to be that warm. And that is causing them problems.
It was not expected that tires would blister here. It's not that hot a day. Temperature hovering near 70 degrees ambient.
Well, Irvine's certainly aren't blistering at the moment, but he's certainly plateaued out. He's flattened out a bit. Jack is managing to maintain this 10 or 11 second gap behind, whereas Irvine was pulling away 2 to 3 seconds a lap while his tires were really good. But he really got it together. Eddie loves this circuit, and I guess he's been here so much. There's something about circuit knowledge. David Coulthard hasn't raced here much, only last year, and of course, and maybe the year before. But when you haven't got that experience here, there's something that you need to know about this circuit. Ralf Schumacher knows it very, very well. Fisichella doesn't know. Fizzy said, I still don't feel happy around it. Ralf Schumacher, for some reason, hasn't performed well this weekend. He said he hasn't been able to get the car up to speed, but we really expected him to do a much better job than he did. In qualifying, that is. But the race is what they're out here for, and at the moment, both the Jordans are in there, rather unlike the last race that we saw when they both flew off the road, taking Schumacher with them.
No braking down into turn 1. As you can see, there's a bit of a bowl effect down there in turns 1 and 2.
Yeah, there's a beautiful camber, Bob, and you sweep down into it. Some sort of, oh, we're ready at Ferrari too, getting ready for one, and no doubt it could well be Eddie. But then, of course, it could well be Michael, to get Michael out of the back of Jacques' slipstream. And then, of course, that would allow Michael a clear bit of track ahead of him. Who knows? Panis is coming in. I thought the Bridgestone tyres were going for one stop. Well, that's completely blown that idea away that we were told. So you can't rely on anybody these days, Bob.
Well, all we were doing was reporting a rumor. Olivier Panis from 11th spot, this on lap 16. A remarkable recovery from 2 broken legs at the Canadian Grand Prix. A heavy crash at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal back in June. Just amazing that Panis is back on the racetrack and very fit, driving perhaps even better than he did before he went away. Eddie Irvine has never led a Formula One race for this length of time. Is he the man to come in first for Ferrari? Approaching the pit in.
Yep, in he goes.
He is. Race leader is in.
Slow it down, Eddie. The rev limiter's got to come into play soon. Slow it right down. Thank goodness he's shifting. Whoa, on the brake. Hate to get him penalised for something. Lovely bit of parking there. I wish I could park as well as that at 70 miles an hour.
Well, that man with the jack at the nose has to be the bravest individual in motorsports.
Good stop. 7.6 seconds and he's away. Look, and he's going out there just right with Frentzen in front of him. There's Frentzen right in front of him as he comes out.
So Eddie Irvine rejoins in 4th place. Interesting, he's got stickers on the front. Many of the teams have been using scrub tires on their changes.
Now we'll just see how he catches up Frentzen, just to see how well he gets on with his new tires, which we saw at the beginning of the race. He streaked up on everybody. We'll see, beginning to see what Frenzen's strategy is. He's not done much at all this weekend. Again, Frentzen does not know Suzuka very well. And these cars, I believe, are so difficult to drive. They're waiting for Schumacher now here in the Ferrari pit, next lap to come in. But these cars seem so difficult to drive that it really, you have to have total confidence in the car and also know the circuit considerably well. And that's what is making it difficult for these inexperienced Suzuka drivers, I believe.
See if the Ferrari team can help Michael Schumacher and if he can get the hot laps he needs on the pit out in order to get ahead of Jacques Villeneuve on the racetrack. Jos Verstappen has pitted. His wife Sophie gave birth to a baby boy, Maximilian, last week. Jos Verstappen has been confirmed with the Tyrrell team for next year alongside young Japanese racer Tiger Tanaka.
Schumacher team actually had all the kits out in the road for Michael to go in, but he's opted to stay out. I think he wants to stay out and see what Jack does. He's managing to stay with Jacques Villeneuve. That's what he wants to do. He's only a second behind. He's happy to do that. So he's going to out as long as he can stay with him. Why go in? That means when he goes in, they'll be able to put less fuel in, and that means less fuel at the second stop as well, which means he can make a quicker stop. That's all part of the strategy. The sooner you go in, the more fuel you have to put in for that last run.
Saw that Ferris wheel in the background, a part of a theme park. Part of the Suzuka Land complex, along with a massive hotel where most of the Formula One fraternity stays this weekend. Shinji Nakano, in his last race with the Prost team, he's expected to be replaced by Jarno Trulli, who stood in so well for Olivier Panis during his recovery from those broken legs I mentioned. Damon Hill has made a long pit stop in the Arrows pit.
This is possibly the last time you're going to see Nakano actually in a Grand Prix car, because I think he's had his spell and he hasn't exactly shone. He got there really by virtue of the fact that Mr. Mugen Honda is a great believer in Nakano. Of course, Mugen Honda are right there in the Prost team, and they insisted Nakano was part of the program, but not anymore. And I think the last race they've said we want our man Trulli back in to give us the best chance, and we don't care anyway because we're running on Peugeot engines next year.
The Williams team sitting in the garage.
Michael seems to be edging up. He's getting a little bit closer, and Frank Williams is there looking at his monitor, and he's going, oh, Michael's in. Michael's in for his pit stop.
This is on lap 18.
That allows the two Williams to be first and second. Frank is probably very happy about that.
Frank is not happy until the checkered hanky waves. One of Schumacher's strengths is that he consistently hits his braking point in the pits.
Look at
to
that.
the inch.
7-second stop, Bob. That was a great stop there.
Good job. But now he really has to get the hammer down. Villeneuve. It remains to be seen if he will make one or two stops in this race. 30.2 from in to out for Michael Schumacher. Now Villeneuve has not stopped, and the Williams team is not in the lane, which would suggest that Villeneuve, who we suspected of having a very heavy load of fuel at the start of this race, is going to try to do it on one stop.
Yes, it does certainly seem like it. It's really, oh, look at him slide. Now, you see, that is his problem. How good are his tires? Oh, look at these two going around the first turn, around the outside. Is that Pani going around there? Pani in the front there. I think he's really, I don't think that could possibly be Nakano. I don't mean that too rudely, but that's Pani having a real go there with Hill and of course with Pedro Diniz. Mike, I must say, Jacques was certainly sliding around, which means he must be considering, he may well consider coming in for a stop soon. It would be unwise to stay out and do another 17 laps, or another 10 laps anyway, should I say, on those tyres. Pretty tough move to make. But we'll see by his times. Times are things that tell the story. They're moving now. They're moving now. Looks like they're just about to get out there. They're stretching, getting ready.
19 laps complete. We'll be back with more from Suzuka in a moment. Back live at the Grand Prix of Japan. Bob Varsha, Derek Bell with you. And here comes race leader and points leader for the World Championship, Jacques Villeneuve. Quick stop.
But he's behind Schumacher. Well, he's certainly behind Irvine. I saw Irvine on Schumacher just go by. He of course should be behind Michael, but we'll have to wait and see. That was dangerous. Oh, that was so dangerous of Villeneuve to make that move. Michael had to take a very bit of evasive action. Somebody spun there. One of the Minardis spun up on the hairpin. Look, though, Schumacher is in front. Schumacher probably had one of his fastest laps. There you are.
Yep.
1:39.7, quickest lap of the race. That's what he did on new fresh set of tyres. So as he always does when he goes out to capitalize on his fresh tyres, he can just go absolutely banzai, Japanese word for very fast. And he got out there and he got ahead of Jacques Villeneuve. And that's just what he wanted. That's what we want for a championship, a bit of dicing going on. Now we're going to see these two wheel to wheel.
I will say this for Jacques Villeneuve, he is brave.
He's very brave, yeah. I think the stewards will be looking at some of the moves he's made in this race and think, I think we're going to throw him out for the next 2 years.
Oh my goodness.
But no, I mean, that's motor racing. That's what Formula One's all about. It's not about pussyfooting round. It's about hard, face driving, and Jack is one of the best. Anybody that can win the Indian 500 and the Indy Championship and then go into Formula One and do such a good job has to be a great driver.
Jacques Villeneuve seeks to join very elite company, the only men who have won America's greatest open wheel championship, the PPG Kart World Series, and the Formula One World Championship. Mario Andretti, Emerson Fittipaldi, and Nigel Mansell. As you watch a replay, didn't look nearly as scary from that perspective.
No, it looked like Michael had everything under control. It looked like Jack thought he had as well. That was an awful move from the one we saw at the beginning. Frentzen in there.
From the lead.
Sorry.
Not a good stop. Not nearly enough to get him back out of the lead. Let me correct myself. The young driver joining the Tyrrell team is Toranosuke Takagi, known as Tiger. My apologies.
Well, a lot of smoke there behind the pits or across down the bottom of the hill there. So that means that we haven't seen Eddie Irvine for a bit. Brian Zoom, he's just creaming along out front somewhere. We don't know what the second gap is. We'll find out in a moment. Oh, dear, look at him lock that. Oh, nasty. Something has gone.
Ah,
Something must have gone.
that's Nakano.
There's an engine
like...
must have blown, and it didn't do anything for his oil on the rear tyres. He had a frightening moment coming down there, but it looks like bearing's gone, or it's just...
Yeah, it looked like it might have been a right rear wheel bearing or something.
He lost the, obviously, that wing nose going over the sand, but he's still carrying on, but he has a bearing certainly gone, or something certainly let rip at the back of the car.
Second from the left, Alain Prost. One of the greatest of all time, a four-time world champion, winner of 51 races, a record Grand Prix victory total. Once again, Nakano.
Yeah, that is an engine to let off. Look at it, he gets on the tyres. He had no indication that it was going in his own mind anyway. He hadn't slowed down very much. Look at him, he's very lucky to find that bit of triangle, as we call it, the Casio triangle. He certainly ran the base there. Look at Jack looking down the inside of Schumacher. He's prepared to have a go at Villeneuve at Michael Schumacher on the inside. Michael is going to give any of it, but Jack seems to have Michael well in his sights and seems very happy to sit there and cruise around behind Michael at this point in time. He's going along very slow. There's Nakano, no dropping oil everywhere as he goes around the track, which is very thoughtful of him. Of course, there he is right on the outside of the corner going up the hill. There he is going down the middle of the road.
What is he doing? Once again, our pictures are from Japanese television, so they are likely to want to focus on their hometown favorite, but...
Well, that's the best line he's taken all day, actually. Should make it interesting for these guys.
All of the top cars have pitted, save for Ralf Schumacher, well, who is now pitting. Speak of the devil, and he shall appear. He was running 8th. Good stop by the Jordan team.
What happened to Villeneuve? Where's Villeneuve? Oh, sorry, that is Eddie. I'm so sorry. I thought, my goodness, what happened to Villeneuve?
Big fun here in Suzuka, Japan on a bright, sunny day. Eddie Irvine out front, bidding for his first ever Formula One victory. What a story that would be. We'll be back with more from Japan. Live at the Formula One Grand Prix of Japan. Next to last round of the World Championship for 1997. The race leader is Eddie Irvine. This battle is for second. The red Ferrari of Michael Schumacher and the blue and white Williams Renault of Jacques Villeneuve. The only two men with a shot at the championship. Villeneuve racing this race under protest, as it were. He was excluded from this race for a yellow flag violation in Saturday morning's free practice. He is racing under appeal, and he risks losing his championship should the appeal go against him.
At this point, well, should I point out that Michael just has to finish. Look how close they're getting up on Eddie Irvine now. Michael has to finish ahead of Villeneuve, forgetting the appeal and all the rest of it. Villeneuve finishes ahead of him. Villeneuve is world champion. So this really is the race for the championship as you see it now, if you can see it, that is. But it's actually the race for the championship. Now, this is going to be interesting. I wonder if this is tactics. Let Michael by and let Irvine hold up. Let Irvine could well hold up. Is Irvine now? Here
That's exactly what he's doing.
Going to hold up. What a good bit of tactics. Lucky I thought of that one. I'm sure I wasn't the first one to think of it. There he was. Irvine was slowing down to hold up. Look at that. What a bit of driving. Absolutely on purpose that was done. We thought about it just before, and we were just expounding off about it, but of course now Eddie has got to keep ahead. I would think that's certainly got to be team orders, and Eddie is going to do his utmost to let Michael get away. Poor Eddie's had a blast, and now he's got Villeneuve all over him. These two are going to have a diabolical battle. Eddie was no doubt helped out to do this. He wants to he's out there to help out Michael, and we know that Eddie can turn the speed on, so now he can just break that gap and let Michael gradually creep away.
Well, we expected this, but I thought it might be a little more subtle, you know, that Eddie would just sort of let his teammate pass him at speed rather than pulling over and letting him go by like that.
This is business, dear boy. This is business. Well, I bet Jack is fuming. Jack has not been happy this weekend, apart from what happened in practice. Well, Jack has a look down the inside of Eddie, but he's got to be a bit quicker than that, and he probably will do it eventually. But he wasn't happy with his teammate, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, because Heinz-Harald didn't qualify very well, and Jack said, I'm alone with the Ferraris. Will somebody please get my teammate up to help me sort this battle out?
In his years in the IndyCars, Villeneuve was known as a very cool customer. His car owner then, Barry Green, said it was amazing. In the heat of battle at the Indy 500, even when he was a lap down, he would try to pull the team up, saying, come on, boys, we can do it, we can catch him, we can win this race. It remains to be seen if he will lose his cool in this situation, knowing that the man ahead of him on the racetrack has absolutely nothing to lose and is only there to keep Villeneuve behind him.
Because Eddie, you see, he's going to go a little bit slower up the twisty bits where he knows Villeneuve can't get a look at him, and he's going to pick up the pace on the exits of the fast corner so Villeneuve cannot drag him down. Now 3.8 seconds, that's between Villeneuve and, of course, Frentzen. Look at Eddie holding him up as he goes. Actually makes Villeneuve almost understeer off the road. Villeneuve must be fuming, and I must admit, as a team owner, I'd be pretty upset about this situation as well. But that's the deal. That is motor racing, and that is exactly, I believe, what Jacques would have had Frentzen do had the roles been reversed.
Jean Todt, Ferrari team manager, who has accomplished so much this year with the group, restructuring Ferrari to take it back to the top of the Formula One World Championship. Michael Schumacher rips away a tear-off to clear his visor.
Well, he now has a clear road ahead. He hasn't got Jacques on his visor at this time. Eddie managing to maintain that lead that he had as he came out of the spoon and up onto the straight. He did seem to pull away. He had a good run out. We've seen how well he runs in the car, so we know that he's capable of running quick. He's not holding Jacques up unmercifully. He just made it very blatant that he was about to perform this act. There's nothing at that point Jacques could do about it. 4 seconds in a lap between Schumacher and Irvine. That's just what Michael wanted, to be able to settle down, get some clean air, drive decently, keep the tyres together, and try and consolidate. And of course, oh, look at this! Berger locking up the brakes as he comes in to try and slow it down as he comes in for what looks like a second stop.
Gerhard Berger passed Andre de Cesaris earlier this year as the second most prolific starter in Formula One driving history. His 209th Grand Prix, but he does not have a drive for 1998. Comparison of lap times, best lap and last lap from Irvine in second to Villeneuve in third. They are virtually locked together. We'll take a break and return for more. Heinz-Harald Frentzen is catching up, as is Mika. Back live at the Grand Prix of Japan. Bob Barsha, Derek Bell, Jonathan Green with you. Michael Schumacher leads, Eddie Irvine second, Jacques Villeneuve third. There's Heinz-Harald Frentzen in fourth, and Mika Hakkinen in fifth. Ride with two-time world champion in his Ferrari.
That's Jean Todt, the team manager, who just conjured up that little bit of genius, but Irvine worked on poor Jacques Villeneuve back there. There they are, falling back quite a long way now. Irvine not apparently really holding him up, but he just slows down a bit sooner than Jacques does, enough to upset Jacques at the end of his braking. This is where Jacques looks, but not this time. There wasn't enough room. Irvine realizes that he's got to give Jacques a bit of room, plus he doesn't want to get caught up by Frentzen, who's coming up behind with Mika Hakkinen, so he's got to keep a bit of pressure on. But Schumacher just got the quickest lap of the race, so Michael's still pressing on. He just needs this button for this extra stop. It would be poetic justice, of course, if Schumacher now broke down. Irvine to keep back Villeneuve from getting any extra points. Too many points, should I say.
The The Benetton twins, Gerhard Berger and John Alesi, have both made their second stops on lap 27, so they're obviously on a 3-stop strategy. Approaching the halfway mark in the race. Michael Schumacher clearly quicker than Jacques Villeneuve at this point. It's easy to forget that Jacques Villeneuve has barely 30 starts in his Formula One career. This is his 32nd start, to be precise. Only 5 drivers who started this race have fewer Grands Prix under their belts than Jacques Villeneuve. But here he is in the running for a possible first world championship.
It is remarkable that we all overlook the fact that he has done so little over here as far as Formula One's concerned. And there he is in a position to win the World Championship, which he really is, and totally capable of doing it in that car. They had their mid-season glitches, Williams. I think they got themselves together finally. But my goodness, mid-season they were in a spot of bother and a bit of disarray. I think they thought that it was a bit too plain sailing, and they were working on their 1998 car, which of course we have different rules and regulations as far as the cars are concerned. And they just got hopped on by Ferrari. Mercedes caught up, as you know, and here we are ready for another pit stop. Now this could well be Villeneuve coming in my opinion, coming in because they can get him out of sync and try and get out ahead of Irvine so he can catch up. Of course, Jacques would have a much heavier load of fuel on then to run to the end of the race. It doesn't totally make sense to me, but it would allow him to get ahead of, well, not ahead of Irvine, but ahead by a stop on Eddie Irvine. Unless, of course, Irvine feels like going in at the same time. Who knows?
So John Alesi has made good use of his new set of Goodyears to set fast lap of the race thus far. I still cannot fathom why the Williams team has appealed Villeneuve's exclusion to allow him to run this race and risk being excluded from the season finale in Jerez de la Frontera in Spain.
My feeling is the fact that if Villeneuve, the plan I feel is that Frank Williams felt that if Villeneuve could go out there, win the race, prove the point that he was world champion, undoubtedly the world champion, then whatever happens, if it was taken away in the courts, then nobody would say, but he was world. There he goes in the pits for a stop, coming in. It would mean, of course, he could go out, win the race, and then prove to everybody, I was world champion, but they took it away from me in the courts. And that's the situation, rather than they didn't even fight for the championship by actually withdrawing from this race or just not doing it.
Early second stop for Villeneuve, who was being held up by Irvine. Now the team will try to get him out in front. A little problem with the fuel hose there.
That's just what he didn't. Oh. That's what he didn't need. But they're putting a lot of fuel in, remember. Remember, of course, he was only coming in. This is his last stop. So it was a longer stop because they had to put a lot more fuel in. And now he's behind one of the McLarens. Now he's got to get by him.
Mika Hakkinen, who beat him out. Trouble getting the fuel hose connected. Kept Jacques Villeneuve overly long in the pits. And now he has a real hole to dig himself out of. The Ferrari team heads for the pit lane.
They're all coming a little earlier than I anticipated, Bob. I don't know about you. I thought they might run another 3 or 4 laps, but they may as well all run the same way. They don't want to give anybody the opportunity to capitalize for having fresh tires while they've got worn tires. Again, it depends really on the times and the speeds that they're traveling at. Very surprised. Pani and Hill way back there, they're on the Bridgestone tires. I'm very surprised that they're having such a poor race here at Suzuka, their home circuit. Makes you see how good Goodyear are to come here once a year and get everything just right.
There you see the cars out of the race, the 2 Japanese drivers, Katayama and Nakano, and the 2 Stewart drivers, Magnussen and Barrichello. Sandwiched between the 2 Tyrrells, that's Verstappen in the white car in the foreground.
Well, Verstappen wasn't very good at letting people, he did well there, but a couple of races ago, boy, he was a real pain in the backside to most of these guys. They just could not get by him. He just held them up. Michael didn't need to be held up then. 6 seconds over Irvine and 10 seconds over Frentzen, he needs a big gap to maintain this gap and sort of pull out that extra bit. Oh, look at that, 31 seconds behind at least is Jacques Villeneuve, at least 31 seconds.
Bit of a panic run for the tires and their electric warmers. For the Ferrari boys. Wonder if they got some information they weren't expecting. Perhaps a blistered tire out there or something. John Todt still crunching the numbers. Most unflappable of men. At Monaco earlier this year on the podium, he handed the Constructors' Trophy to his race winner, Michael Schumacher. Asked about it later, he said, Michael made every decision about car setup, tires to use, whether it was going to continue to rain or dry up. He won this race. The team had nothing to do with it, so they gave him both trophies. Tyrrell heads for the pit.
In he goes.
Eddie Irvine with a Tyrrell ahead of him. I don't think it'll hold him up, though.
You hear him downshift as he got down to first gears to get down to the rev limit as he came down over the white line. Another good stop. Not brilliant, but certainly a better stop than poor old Jacques Villeneuve had just now.
Tyrrell team outdid the Ferrari boys.
Here he comes now. Here comes one of the McLarens there behind it. It might be David Coulthard. No, it isn't. It's Hakkinen with Villeneuve behind, and then behind him is David Coulthard. And then I assume it's Fisichella back there. Can't quite see. It's certainly yellow jaw.
That's what a 2-second difference on pit stops will do to your position on the racetrack in Formula One. Quickly, the Ferrari team resets in the pits for their race leader.
Now, just if you think about it, Schumacher's done 4 laps more on this tank of fuel, which means he's got 4 laps less to do on the next tank, which of course means they haven't got to put as much fuel in, therefore he should have a quicker stop. Given that benefit of this right now, they're looking up at the sky, the Ferrari mechanics, who knows? Well, look at him, see it? A little bit of left foot braking as he comes in there and keeps that speed on as he goes to the 130. In he comes in the pits for his fuel stop, Michael Schumacher.
Out there by that right side guardrail. My goodness.
It's got to be a perfect stop. Pretty good one with the wheels. There you go, good stop. Not as quick as Irvine's. Not a bad stop.
Didn't run a bit long.
I think he's still in the lead though. There he is, there's Eddie Irvine behind, followed by Frentzen. Oh, Frenzen's in the lead, I think, actually. That isn't Frentzen back there, but Frentzen, of course, has not stopped as yet, unless it's a ploy on the part of Frank Williams. See, Villeneuve is making no headway into Mika Hakkinen at all, but it's the first time this race that Mika hasn't had somebody in front of him, I think. So Mika is actually pressing on as fast as we would have expected of him. Now he's got a relatively empty bit of road in front of him, and Jack can do nothing about it.
20 laps remaining in the Formula One Grand Prix of Japan. 16th and next to last round of the World Championship. We'll be back with more in a moment. Back live at the Grand Prix of Japan. Over Michael Schumacher, but Frentzen still has a pit stop to make. You see the gaps for the runners behind. Lazy and Hakkinen running 5th and 6th.
Villeneuve's right behind Hakkinen, of course. Or not right, but he's fairly close behind him.
Slow second pit stop. Jacques Villeneuve back. Through the famous chicane where in 1989, the late Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost collided as McLaren teammates, handing Prost the championship. He then moved on to the Ferrari team. Senna was so enraged by the whole incident that a year later, at this point of the racetrack, on the very first lap of the race, he plowed into the back of Prost's car and claimed the world title for himself.
Michael Schumacher actually on that lap lost 2 seconds to Frentzen, which is quite interesting. Actually, Frenzen's pulling away from him, which isn't a good sign, but then maybe Schumacher got held up by a tail marker, which we didn't manage to see. And at this point, Frentzen is being held up himself. That's a long way to be upheld on that way up. And that passes that 1:39.3 for Frentzen. That's a very good lap when you consider that his tyres must be getting pretty worn by now. But of course, he's also light on fuel.
David Coulthard makes his second stop. That drops him out of 8th place. The order ahead of him: Heinz-Harald Frentzen, Michael Schumacher, Eddie Irvine, Johnny Herbert, John O'Lacey, Mika Hakkinen, Jacques Villeneuve. Giancarlo Fisichella moves up into 8th. Gerhard Berger runs 9th. Winner at the Grand Prix of San Marino earlier this year, taking enormous pressure off his back. Yet the German Heinz-Harald Frentzen once again finds himself 4 seconds to teammate Jacques Villeneuve, and perhaps even more important to him, a 4 second to his German countryman Michael Schumacher. Williams team sets up in the pit lane for Frentzen. Offspring of a German father and a Spanish mother, Heinz-Harald Frentzen will be very much in his home element for the final race of the year in Jerez, Spain, the Grand Prix of Europe.
Schumacher pulled back 2 seconds that lap, having lost some time in the previous lap, so that is probably through the traffic. Of course, Schumacher should be pulling in now. As I said, he has the fresher tyres, although of course Frentzen has a lighter load of fuel.
There is Johnny Herbert, whose teammate Gianni Morbidelli crashed heavily in qualifying and was withdrawn from this race. Herbert will have a new teammate in the Sauber Ferrari team next year, or Sauber Petronas, basically a Ferrari V10 rebadge. John O'Lacey will partner Johnny Herbert in 1998.
John is in 4th place, but he actually hasn't stopped yet for fuel for the second stop, so it's not quite a true picture of the race. It's true at this moment. Oh, the one of the Prost has blown again. The second engine, look at Panis's head going, I don't believe it, but mind you, 13th place is not exactly terribly creditable for the team at the moment. Very disappointing for him. Sorry, Bob.
Nakano dropped out earlier with what we suspect was a blown engine. They blew 3 of these engines yesterday in practice and qualifying. And those are the Mugen Honda engines that will be in the Jordan next year. Race leader Heinz-Harald Frentzen heads for the pits. Put Michael Schumacher back into the race lead. Almost certainly.
Super stop from Frentzen. There's Schumacher going by the pits, followed by Eddie Irvine. Now is Eddie coming out ahead of the Williams? Yes, just about. My goodness me, this is close. Is Irvine going to go? Irvine goes round the outside. No. But you watch what happens soon. Ooh, because Frenzen's on sticker tyres. They will not have the grip yet. Eddie, of course, mustn't get himself out of shape here. He desperately needs to get a second place. Got to play it cool, mustn't overdo it. But he could have a go at him under braking at the top of the hill, because Frentzen won't be too confident with his brakes at this moment in time on this new rubber. But they do vary considerably.
Johnny Herbert pits from 4th place. It's Tarso Marquez in the Minardi just ahead of these two. Marquez pitted from 14th place.
Something to concentrate on, that is for certain. He had a great first half of the race, but my goodness, now he's got to prove himself to Ferrari that he can get that car back into second place to get a Ferrari 1-2. At the moment it looks that good, but of course there's still several laps to go to the climax of this race.
Giancarlo Fisichella has made what should be his last pit stop. Ralf Schumacher, Fisichella's teammate, the only top car that has not made its second pit stop.
Here we go.
This is a replay.
He just pushed Eddie on the outside. I mean, it's very, very close, but he just shows the speed that come out of that. Eddie has a look down. The outside of him can't have a go around there. Very dodgy place to go, and Frentzen knows it as well. You can soon fly it off a very, very long corner that. We should see what happens from now on, though. But there we've got, there's Hakkinen in 5th place, and we've got Jack Villeneuve, no doubt, in 6th. They haven't said it. There he is, but look, he's dropped by 11 seconds. My terrible addition. Used to be much better when I was younger. But 11 second drop. He's actually falling back from Mika Hakkinen, and that doesn't totally make sense to somebody that was driving so well just now. I can't believe he's resigned himself to picking up 1 or 2 points, but there you go. Maybe Mika's putting on a great show and we don't know it.
Ralf Schumacher has now made his final stop. 15 laps remain in the race. Take a break and return for more live from the Grand Prix of Japan. Stay right there. Back live at the Grand Prix of Japan. Michael Schumacher, now the race leader, going around one of the Arrows cars. The order is Schumacher, Michael that is, Heinz-Harald Frentzen, Eddie Irvine is 3rd, Jean Alesi 4th, Mika Hakkinen 5th, Jacques Villeneuve 6th. Gerhard Berger has just made his 3rd pit stop, dropping out of 7th place. Johnny Herbert moves up to 7th, followed by David Coulthard and Giancarlo Fisichella. Damon Hill and Ralf Schumacher.
Frentzen just got the quickest lap of the race just now, and I think he's making inroads into Michael Schumacher, but we know catching him and passing him are 2 different things. But it's one of those sort of tracks you get out of shape on the way up a hill. Somebody can zap by on the next short straightaway. So Michael's got his work cut out here. Eddie Irvine's doing nothing much now. Eddie's dropping back from Frentzen, who we saw in that last stint really got to grips with it all and was doing some superb times. Another Benetton in the pits. This must be John Alesi, who's running in 4th spot, so he'll be dropping back too. This is their 3rd stop, most unusual sort of pit stop strategy. Maybe it'll work in the end, but I don't think so, because certainly the Williams aren't going to stop an extra time. Again, another fastest lap, nearly a 10th quicker behind Heinz-Harald Frentzen. So he's making good inroads into Michael Schumacher, what Schumacher didn't need. But as long as Villeneuve is behind, I guess he doesn't mind too much, but he would like maximum points, I'm sure.
Above the spoon curve. Wide shot gives you a great feeling for the speed these cars are traveling. Heading for the chicane at the top of the hill.
Through the 130R.
There's the pit entrance.
Denise isn't about to let Frentzen get by there. He's going to have to earn it going down the next straightaway. Look how he gets it sideways, Denise. He goes down there. Here he goes. He must have him now. Got superior speed. He's calling him by. Denise has his hand out, flicking him by down the inside.
He's running outside the top 10. Now, if points were to be awarded based on current position, Michael Schumacher 1st, Jacques Villeneuve running 5th. They would be tied in points. The tiebreaker is victories on the season. Michael Schumacher cannot match the 7 victories that Jacques Villeneuve has posted this year. So in case of a points tie, it would go to Villeneuve. But it remains to be seen whether Villeneuve will take any points from this Japanese Grand Prix and whether or not he will be excluded from the final race of the year in Spain. It could happen. We won't know until the International Governing Body Appeals Tribunal meets in Paris sometime between now and the final race of the season in Spain. from this race for a yellow flag violation in Saturday morning practice. Not his first of the year, but he is running the race under appeal. There's the gap from Schumacher back to Villeneuve in fifth. Nearly 27 seconds. Take a break and return for more from the Suzuka circuit. Stand by. The Japanese Grand Prix continues. Japanese Grand Prix continues live. Michael Schumacher leading over his German countryman Heinz-Harald Frentzen, followed by Eddie Irvine. Mika Hakkinen is fourth, Jacques Villeneuve fifth, and Jean Alesi sixth.
Intriguing view. That's the view that Frentzen has out the front of his car. You can just see Michael Schumacher at certain points of the track.
Running seventh is Johnny Herbert, eighth David Coulthard, followed by Giancarlo Fisichella ninth, Gerhard Berger is 10th, Damon Hill 11th, Ralf Schumacher 12th, followed by Pedro Diniz, Tarso Marquez, Mika Salo, and Jasper Stappen, the only cars still running.
We're now seeing Schumacher, I believe, drive at his very, very best. He knows that he can win this race. He knows he's got the ability, he knows he's got the car. He was falling back in the clutches somewhat of Frentzen, but now you're seeing Schumacher in a car that probably isn't handling quite as well as it should be, absolutely driving to his limit, and immaculately. I hope that if he continues for my benefit, otherwise I'm going to look an idiot, but he's absolutely driving immaculately, using every bit of the road as only he knows how, but in fact pulling away from Jacques Villeneuve, who's actually 30 seconds behind him at this point. Jacques did not want that, however. Jacques is picking up points, and as we pointed out, he could still be in the lead of the championship following this race as it lies now.
As things currently stand, Williams will clinch the Constructors' title today, no matter what happens to Jacques Villeneuve. With Heinz-Harald Frentzen running second, the Constructors' Championship margin from the Williams team to the Ferrari team is 18 points. That is enough to clinch.
That gap is still 5.0 seconds now. That's 5 seconds rather than 5.1. Picking up a tenth of a second a lap on Michael. That's all right, but there's only about 8 laps to go.
9, I believe.
9, I do beg your pardon. I was only said about. But nonetheless, Frenzsen's doing a great job, but it's almost a bit late in the race to do it. Irvine's falling back, unfortunately. Now Michael's got to keep these cars going for the rest of the race. We know the Ferrari has been more hungry, uses its tires up more than you'd expect. Frenzsen's got a quicker lap there by 0.3 of a second than Michael has during the race.
Eric, you remember our qualifying show? We watched Michael Schumacher, who did not get out to complete his runs. He only did 6 laps in qualifying, half of the allowable number, and yet put his car on the front row alongside Jacques Villeneuve, just 62/1000ths of a second off of pole, and he shared a lap with his team. I think Schumacher knew something, and they have simply dominated this race.
Yes, they really have. I mean, obviously Eddie Irvine's bit of brinksmanship back there, teamsmanship or whatever you want to call it, was certainly very blatant. See, 31 seconds, he's actually pulling away another nearly 2 seconds away from Jacques. But of course Jacques probably has just settled for the fact he's only going to get a couple of points out of this, and hoping that Michael flounders towards the end. Frentzen was 5 seconds last lap, still 5 seconds exactly the same, with again now 8 laps to go. Michael's just got to keep it all together, but of all the drivers out there, I think he's the one that can concentrate hard enough to keep it together for this last few laps. Still, anything can happen. It's a very tricky circuit. It's a circuit you cannot relax on at all. You have to keep your thoughts with it the whole time. Look at these sweeps and turns. You mustn't forget just where you are on the track. The absolutely immaculate. This is called a Dania curve. The trickier corner than it looks as he comes in there. Very, very much tighter, and it's got that bump in the middle on the apex as you hit that curve, flicks you outwards and flicks this flat-out right-hander into the hairpin. Look how similar their laps are, 39.77, 39.74. Just a hair's breadth between the two cars as they finish off this race.
Former teammates in the Sauber sports car effort.
Yes, when they drove the Sauber Mercedes, strange enough, some of you might well remember the Sauber Mercedes. The only time I actually raced on this side of the Atlantic was in Mexico, when Michael Schumacher and Frentzen drove the two cars in there. I think in the last sports car race we ever did in Mexico City. Michael was electrifyingly fast, but they always said that Frentzen was in fact quicker. In fact, on reflection, when I actually looked through some of the lap times from those races in sports cars, Michael was very, very fast, but of course in those days we had no idea he was going to be as great as he's subsequently become.
This is Jacques Villeneuve and John Alesi for fifth.
Yeah, Jacques Villeneuve is actually under a lot of pressure from John Alesi, I would say. But a lot of smoke comes off that car under braking. I know it's not both the Williams, but I think it's just brake dust. Jacques having a terrible time to keep it together. Remember, Alesi's on fresher tyres than Jacques. Alesi's been in for 3 stops, and still you could well get that position away from Jacques Villeneuve. If Jacques has a problem here, Johnny Herbert not far behind either.
John Alesi has a shot at third in the World Driving Championships. He very much wants to get it in his last season with the Benetton team before he moves on to Sauber in 1998.
Of course, unfortunately, he's 1 point behind Heinz-Harald Frentzen, who's several points ahead of him at this point in time on the circuit. Jack really gets away up to those S's on John Alesi, doesn't he? He really streaks away. It's the long corners where the tires they sort of get overworked in those long corners, and that's where Jean seems to catch Jacques up.
What a turnabout. In the last 3 races, Jacques Villeneuve has outscored title rival Michael Schumacher 22 points to 2. But here today, as you watch Heinz-Harald Frentzen, Schumacher has just driven away imperiously. With the penalty to Jacques Villeneuve, the full extent of which we do not know, Michael Schumacher looming very large for the World Championship once again. We'll be back. Back in Japan, sweeping through turns 1 and 2 here at the Suzuka circuit, Michael Schumacher, with 5 laps remaining in the race, leads his countryman Heinz-Harald Frentzen. Sweeping downhill. Behind him, Mika Hakkinen.
Mika would love to just get that extra position of Eddie, and Eddie, I think after his excellent drive in the first half of the race, does not need to let Hakkinen by. As we said before, catching up and overtaking are 2 totally different things. Villeneuve's 36 seconds behind Schumacher, so Jack is certainly not happy back there, and he probably has a problem with his car. To slip back like that, there must be something untoward, because he was going so well in that early part of the race.
Back in April, Heinz-Harald Frentzen led his German countryman Michael Schumacher across the line to the first German 1-2 in many, many years in Formula One. Here today in Japan, they will do it again. One of the Tyrrells is off. Either Jasper Stappen. No, it's Mika Salo. Look at the car. All of that crud accumulated on the side pods, the wing, and on the helmet of driver Mika Salo. That's the Pacific Ocean in the background. We're very close to the seashore here in Suzuka. On the lead lap, 14 cars of the 21 that started still running. 4 laps to go.
4 seconds between them. But he's been inching away on that. Frentzen's taken about 10 laps to take a second off Michael, but he's catching him. But, you know, is Michael just conserving it just that bit? I imagine he possibly is. 4 seconds to me isn't very much. Well, to any of us it isn't very much, but you certainly don't need that bloke too close behind you should you come across any traffic or get it a bit out of shape, or maybe even the tire stuff to go away. You need every bit of time you can have to just maintain that lead.
Up and over the hill, there are many of them around this Suzuka circuit. 4 wins this year for Michael Schumacher. If he can hold on now, today would be his 5th. Eight other point-scoring finishes as well, in contrast to Jacques Villeneuve's year, which has seen 7 victories, but only 3 other point-scoring finishes.
Easy to see what happens here. Damon Hill is just in front, I believe I'm right in saying, and he said when he's being interviewed, would he interfere at all in the dice for the lead between Villeneuve and Schumacher, and he said no, I would most certainly keep well out of their way. I know what it's like to be held up by slower cars. This must be an awful moment. Remember, Damon became world champion here last year, and here he has happened to let Michael Schumacher go by him, who was his main protagonist the year before that, of course. He might not let Michael by yet, but I expect he will fairly shortly when they get towards the top of the hill, when the power and the superb handling of the Ferrari start to come to play.
On the rev limiter there briefly.
Come on, Damon, let him by. Well, there's any time now.
What a difference a year makes.
Yep.
Of course, the man who would benefit if Damon holds up Michael is the man who took Damon's ride with Williams, Heinz-Harald Frentzen.
Damon knew that. He probably would be a little bit more pleasant to Michael. But there's nothing more galling than being lapped, and I'm sure Damon is aware of that. Now, Damon, we'll see what happens. They come into the spoon. Can let Michael go through? No, he's not yet. Michael's going to have to wait until the straightaway, which means waiting for the chicane.
There is Frentzen.
Not far behind, but you can see that gap has really closed up. Michael can't get close behind in those corners. There's too much turbulence. Michael's going to have to go by after this corner, breaking the chicane, which of course may well mean that the hill will then. Now we're going to see Michael go by. Is Damon going to let him by you? That's not good, Damon. After what you said, that's not British at all. Look at Frentzen all over the back of him. But come on, he's got to let him go by down here, or Michael should steam by down here. Of course, Frentzen now could well be held up by Damon. Look at him waving his fist at him. Get over you. Well, he did that a few times before, but they were both battling for the World Championship 2 years ago.
2 laps to go.
Oh, dear, did Damon Hill slow down then? Did you see that? Well, that seemed, he really let back down to let Frentzen by, but he didn't do that to Schumacher. That wasn't at all playing the game, but I'm sure Damon is delighted to think he might have helped Frentzen catch up a bit.
There are a variety of new rules that will come into effect with next season. One of them is larger rear view mirrors on these cars.
What you need for the last lap of the Grand Prix, 1.1 seconds between you.
And a very highly motivated driver behind you.
Yeah, one who actually I think has been really the driver of the second half of the race. He's had a superb drive. Obviously got it all together. As you said earlier, he hasn't raced here that much before. And it does seem that circuit knowledge here really, really pays off, particularly with, if I may say so, not the stars. With Villeneuve, it didn't seem to matter at all. With Schumacher, they seem to adapt on any circuit it is, and they're always quick. But for the other drivers, it seems to take time. Can you imagine being that close from a Grand Prix victory and not being able to just quite get there? Now we're going to see if they got enough fuel for that last lap.
To go. 2 German drivers up front. Things currently stand, Williams will clinch the Constructors' Championship here in Japan. For Michael Schumacher, his 27th career win, if he can take it, and his team is preparing to welcome him home. That 27th win would tie him with the great Jackie Stewart on the all-time win list.
Michael actually pulled some time out on that last lap on Frentzen. He obviously was so upset with the manoeuvre with Damon, and I'm sure he will say something about it afterwards. Look how close they are. He's just that bit ahead that he was before. Can those two cars hold together to give this World Championship so much more excitement as they go to the Jerez? Even if the appeal is completely squashed, or should I say they uphold the appeal. In fact, what I meant to say would mean the last race would certainly be a battle of the Titans to see just who can get ahead. At this point in time, I think we said before, Bob, this will put Schumacher 1 point ahead of Villeneuve if it pans out the way it looks like. All Michael has to do is get around the chicane, make an error here.
Well, in any event, the worst thing that could happen is for officials to decide the World Championship rather than the drivers on the racetrack. A puff of steam off the chicane, but it really doesn't matter because the checkered flag awaits and it flies over Michael Schumacher, tying Jackie Stewart for 4th on the all-time Formula One win list with his 27.
He does look happy. I've never seen him quite so vehement with his excitement over. Look at this battle going on here for Irvine and Häkkinen. Eddie's coming in. He'll be on the rostrum as well. That is really superb for Ferrari. I'm surprised Mika couldn't do more about it, but how exciting for Eddie Irvine to get such a good result after playing such a major part in Michael Schumacher's victory. Let's face it, if Eddie hadn't done what he did to help Michael by slipping back and holding up Villeneuve, then letting Michael get away, then I don't think he'd have won. I think you'll find that it would have been the Rothman's car who won. Very disappointed, Jack Villeneuve. I'm sorry, Bob, but he must be so disappointed. That is so disappointed for him.
The Williams team must be somewhat chagrined as well. They have been completely outfoxed by Ferrari in this race. And if not outfoxed, outperformed. Jean Todt accepting congratulations, declining interviews, which is a bit of a house sport in Formula One. This Japanese crowd has certainly gotten an eyeful. There is David Coulthard, who apparently will not finish, or is perhaps past the finish line. I'm not sure where he is.
No, he's lost it, hasn't he?
I believe he has.
Coming up to the chicane on the last lap. That's coming out of 130R, I believe, on the way up the chicane. Very fast bit of track to go off.
Fist pumping Michael Schumacher's quest for the World Championship has suddenly been breathed new life. We'll be back with more from Japan. Ferrari, an impossible margin to overcome in the final race of the year. Actually, the gap, should Jacques Villeneuve lose his points from this race, will still be 18. And that is 2 more than they need for Williams to collect its record 9th Constructors' Championship. There is the man of the hour, Michael Schumacher, being asked to kindly step back in his car and park it properly. Eddie Irvine, in many ways, the hero of this race, certainly as far as the Ferrari fans are concerned. As the church bells ring in Maranello, and the 2 teammates congratulate one another.
They're having a laugh about that one. They'll laugh about that one for years to come.
Saying, Eddie, you stopped so quickly to let me get by. I almost crashed into you. Team on the pit wall.
Well, they certainly out-fumbled Williams' team today, that is for sure.
Eddie Irvine has just the kind of mischievous personality that will take delight in the way this race is unfolded. Here is the Drivers' Championship as of this moment. Jacques Villeneuve with just a 1-point lead over Michael Schumacher. But remember, he still has to argue his appeal before the FIA tribunal over his penalty for violating a yellow flag problem, ignoring a yellow flag basically, in Saturday morning practice. And it remains to be seen what will happen with 1 race remaining in this championship, that the Grand Prix of Europe in Jerez, Spain, in 2 weeks' time. Johnny Herbert, a good result today, finishing just outside the points in 7th place. David Coulthard making the long walk in, stopped at the top of the hill. There is Jacques Villeneuve, looking fairly composed.
I think he's looking for Eddie Irvine. I don't think he's looking composed. No, but I know what you mean. I'm sure he'd love to have a few words with Eddie, and I'm sure he will. He's got a bit of a smile on his face.
All's fair. Donna Lacey follows him into the Parc Fermé.
Yeah, they go to be weighed, check that they haven't lost any weight.
Final results of the race. 27th career Grand Prix win for Michael Schumacher. Heinz-Harald Frentzen second in a German 1-2. Eddie Irvine third, a Ferrari 1-3. Mika Hakkinen fourth, followed by Jacques Villeneuve and Jean Alesi in the sixth and final points-paying position. Johnny Herbert, as I mentioned, finished seventh. David Coulthard eighth, despite stopping on the racetrack. Giancarlo Fisichella ninth for the Jordan team. Then Gerhard Berger. Michael Schumacher, always a happy man on the podium. You can be sure Eddie Irvine will be as well. A tradition.
Life difficult, in particular to me, as at the beginning to keep up with the other guys.
The Formula One World Driving Championship has now taken a dramatic twist. Jacques Villeneuve must face a tribunal to see if he will keep the points won today and if he will even race in the final event of the year to try to maintain a one-point advantage over Michael Schumacher and claim his first world title. All in all, an interesting weekend in Japan. Derek Bell?
Yes, well, I thought it was the most exciting race. Some of the moves were outstanding, but it was certainly a very tactical race, and I thought Ferrari came out for once as being the real stars of tactical racing, how to make two drivers work together. Very clever bit of maneuvering, I thought. I feel very sorry for Jacques with all the pending problems he has, but I think Heinz-Harald Frentzen came on very well at the end. But I have to say, if it hadn't been for Eddie Irvine's drive, and the fact of him making that break between Michael and, of course, Villeneuve, I don't think that we would have seen such a good result.
One race remains of the Formula One World Driving Championship in 1997. The European Grand Prix from Jerez in Spain, 2 weeks' time. Join us here on ESPN2. I'm Bob Varsha for Derek Bell and Jonathan Green. So long, everyone. This has been a presentation of ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports.